yourself a cold one.
They strike 'em, huh?
And listen to Ross Tucker break down the top college prospects on another tasty edition of The College Draft.
Yeah, it's Daddy Soda time here on the College Draft Podcast. We are presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. I am merely Ross Tucker, the former NFL offensive lineman, 5 teams, 7 years, awesome temp job in my 20s. I cannot believe it's July. Hope everybody had a terrific holiday weekend. But we're like, 5 or 6 weeks away from college football starting, which like real games, week 0, which is amazing, which means my guy Emory Hunt will be picking the games against the spread. He's done very well. If you're looking for a college football betting podcast, this is the show. But we also give you some analysis about the game. And we also, since a lot of people are more into the NFL or the NFL draft, we'll talk about some of the top prospects. Today, we are all about the Big Ten, which is quiet as it's kept, which is actually, this is how you know Emory and I have done a lot of shows together. I've never said that before. But Emory says that expression all the time, and now it's in my head, quiet as it's kept. The Big Ten's back-to-back national champs. And the Big Ten very easily could have had both teams in the national championship game. Penn State not able to get it done against Notre Dame last year. Notre Dame's kind of a Big Ten team anyway, but let's be honest. But the Emory I speak of is the great Emory Hunt at FBall Game Plan on Twitter. I think I said this, but I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. We're at Ross Tucker Pod. He's Football Game Plan on YouTube. We are youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. There's a preseason game. Is there a preseason game later this month with the Hall of Fame game? That is nuts. Footballgameplan.com/2025 draft guide. If you haven't gotten it, it would be your best material to have in front of you while you're watching all these preseason games on NFL Network, because there's going to be so many guys you don't know much about. Bang. Emory's got a scouting report on pretty much all of them in the draft guide. Highly encourage you to not only subscribe to College Draft on audio podcast or YouTube, but make sure you have those notifications turned on. It's awesome. I have notifications turned on now with some of my favorite podcasts. I never did that before, but when they're available, it's so much better. It pops up for you. You can just click. As Emory said last week, talking about Avion Terrell, you can just click and close and listen to that right away. If you missed the ACC last week, thought Emory had some terrific points about Cade Klubnik and Carson Beck and strong comments on Haynes King as the best quarterback in the ACC. Go back and check that out. Speaking of quarterbacks, Emory, the Big Ten lost some, for sure. They lost Hosmer from Minnesota and Will Howard from Ohio State, but they still have a guy. I've been really looking forward to this for the last few weeks. I'm curious to get your breakdown, your opinion on Drew Allar, the quarterback from Penn State, Emory.
You mean Drew Bledsoe? Like he we grew up, Ross, where a guy like Allar would have been a clear-cut number 1 overall pick. But the game has changed a little bit, where you got to be a little bit more athletic, and Allar can move around a little bit. But his throwing motion and his arm always reminds me of Drew Bledsoe, who I was a big fan of at Washington State, and also when he was first overall with the Patriots, instantly made those guys relevant and led them to a Super Bowl in '97. So Drew Allar has skills. I think he's a pro quarterback. I know when you try to see the discussion on social media, it's always he's great or he stinks. But the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Like, yes, he had some inconsistencies that you want to see him work through. But I thought last year with Andy Kotelnicki, was a great foundation for him. You have to just disregard the first couple of years we've seen of Drew Allar because, again, you had him working through, a different offense. He's coming in reserve. But last year was the foundation, the floor, in my opinion. So I'm excited to see what he could do building on that. Because at times, you go back to the Boise State game or the Notre Dame game, you're like, oh, wow, that's a great throw. That's some fantastic touch and timing and anticipation. And then you have the other games where you're just like, man, like get rid of the football, like make a play. So I want to see him flatline his consistency this year because he has the arm, he has the talent, and hopefully this year they have the receivers to where we can really see him elevate his stock and be the next Kerry Collins or the next, Drew Bledsoe coming out of Penn State. Talk about Kerry Collins and Drew Bledsoe, who I think he's more comparable to. But I like Drew Allar, man. I've always been a big fan of his game.
I got a lot to say on this one. Emory, as you know, I live, I think, an hour and 15 minutes from Penn State. Grew up a Penn State season ticket holder, Penn State fan. So it just so happens I watch a lot of Penn State football when I can. I used to actually do a radio show every week, but I don't have the time to watch every Penn State game now. I just can't, to do it justice. I can't go back and watch the Penn State tape. Like, I'm not doing that. But if they're on TV and I'm in a hotel room, I'm usually trying to watch them. So I've got a few things to say about this. First of all, I've been around Drew twice. Very impressive young man. Actually, more than twice. In social situations, really, really impressive. In fact, I just saw him a couple weeks ago. It was unbelievable, Emory. I was at the U.S. Open golf tournament, which was in Pennsylvania. It was out in Pittsburgh. And there was like an hour and a half there's an hour and a half rain delay, and that happened to be when Drew was in our hospitality tent. I was in the West Shore home, sponsored, by the way, of our shows, Ross Tucker Podcast, Even Money, love westshorehome.com/Ross. I was in their hospitality tent. I also love hospitality tents, by the way. I was in their hospitality tent, and Drew came in. Emory was perfect. The whole hour and a half during the rain delay, I was just firing questions at him. I was just pinging him. First of all, he is a big kid. I mean, he is all of 6'5", 230, 235. And it's so funny because, I played a couple years with Bledsoe in Buffalo. Reminds me a lot of Bledsoe. A lot of Bledsoe. Like in almost every way. The things that I get frustrated with him about sometimes, Emory, are, first of all, he throws a beautiful ball.
Right.
He's a smart kid. He made major strides last year in terms of running. His true freshman year and his sophomore year, he never ran. Like never. Like total statue. Last year, he actually had, he gained some important first downs with his legs. He's not a dual threat guy, but he showed that he can get some yards with his legs. And in college football, we talk about that's gigantic. That helped him out tremendously. You said the thing that frustrates me about him, and honestly, frustrated me at times about Drew Bledsoe. Number one, I think his pocket movement could be better. There were times where, and Bledsoe was a terrific player, but he, like the subtle pocket movement, the Brady, the Marino, the shuffle, the slide, the whatever, I think that's an area where Drew could get better. Both Drews, although I don't think Bledsoe, he's like 50 now, but both Drews. And then take some sacks that are frustrating. You take some sacks that are really, really frustrating. That's probably the O-lineman in me that comes out. But when you just said, like, come on, man, get rid of the ball or make a play, that's the next step. In fairness to him, their receivers were not good. He has not had good receivers yet. I mean, and I don't know, they got a couple transfers this year, including a kid, Pena from Syracuse, that lit it up last year with McCord at Syracuse. So maybe he'll have them this year, but he has not had very good receivers. They didn't have one catch in the semifinals against Notre Dame. Not one catch from the receivers. The flip side, though, okay, if we're going to point that out, he had the best tight end in college football last year in Tyler Warren. Their running backs, who we're going to get to, are both studs. And especially down the stretch in their playoffs, their O-line was awesome. By the way, this might be the best O-line in Penn State history this year. Like, they are loaded. So that goes both ways. You can't just say the receivers stink, but not point out, okay, but the tight ends, running backs, and O-line are all really, really good. But I think what you said is right. He's one of those guys, it's like Cush in Jerry Maguire, right? Like the good looks really, really good. There's just times where you're like, wait, what's he seeing there? Is that a football intelligence thing? Is it just he needs more experience? But I think you have a really good handle on where he's at. I love the Drew Bledsoe comparison. I just talked too long. We got to get to these other guys. The other quarterback you have, Emory. I don't know why this guy didn't transfer last year. I didn't know this guy still had eligibility. How many years has he been playing college football now? That's Mark Gronowski, who's at Iowa, who you and I know at South Dakota State has been awesome for years.
Right, and why he has his bonus eligibility is because his head coach at South Dakota State left and took the job at Washington State. So, that's the rule now. You get that free transfer or whatnot. And so, Ross, hear me out. This is probably one of the more under-the-radar storylines in college football with Iowa at their quarterback position, right? Of all schools, Iowa has not had a significant threat at quarterback since Brad Banks, like when he was a Heisman finalist. Like, why has everyone in the country found themselves a quarterback that's a difference maker except Iowa? They have everything already in place. Run game, defense, special teams. They whiff on quarterback consistently, right? Gronowski gives them championship pedigree, someone that does a good job in playing above the X's and O's. His situational football is A+. I think this is someone that can help make this team the dark horse team in the Big Ten. I know the college football playoffs, everyone's talking about, SEC needs, 12 of the 12 teams in the postseason, and maybe they'll give the Big Ten one, or maybe don't even look over here, group of 5, right? So I think Gronowski makes Iowa a threat. He's a really good player. And getting him with this football team, with how he played at South Dakota State and having to climb that mountain over North Dakota State one year to get to a national championship game, this is a huge acquisition for Kirk Ferentz and company out there with the Hawkeyes.
Don't go anywhere. Got to pay some bills real quick. Hope everybody had an amazing holiday weekend. Man, I love long weekends. Nothing better. You just buy some Labatt, you drink it, you upload your receipt, and you rack up points for exclusive merch. That's a good weekend. You get points for every purchase at any store, bar, stadium. Doesn't matter. Buy beer, get gear. Rewards.labattusa.com. I have a foolproof plan for Iowa. You ready for this, Emory?
Let's go.
Don't ever offer any quarterbacks a scholarship out of high school until North Dakota State offers them a scholarship. As soon as North Dakota State offers them a scholarship, offer that guy. Right. That guy. Carson Wentz, the guy before Carson Wentz, who played in the CFL or whatever.
Yeah, Brock Jensen.
Yeah, Trey Lance, Cam Miller, who I loved, the Raiders took in the 6th round. How is it possible an FCS school has had good quarterback play for 15 years now, and Iowa hasn't? Just offer whoever North Dakota State offers. They'd rather go to Iowa.
Bro, even South Dakota State, you got Gronowski, and before that you had what's the kid that played, that's 2-time Super Bowl champ, Chris Oladokun. Who's with Kansas City. Pay attention.
By the way, I know a school that as soon as North Dakota State offers a kid, they offer him. That's how much respect they have for North Dakota State. Think about that. That's unbelievable. And they're not Power 4, but they're Group of 5, and that says a lot about a lot. Okay, let's get to some of these other guys because we're running out of time because it's Big Ten and I know a lot of these guys, so I'm talking too much. Well, okay, you got a quarterback here. This can't be right. Billy Edwards from Nebraska?
From Wisconsin. I got my red and whites mixed up.
Oh, okay.
He transferred from another red and white school in Maryland.
Right, because I'm sitting there thinking, well, wait a minute. The quarterback in Nebraska is what's his name?
Raiola. Right.
All right. Billy Edwards, Wisconsin.
Underrated player, man. Him, if you go watch him at Maryland, you're like, yo, this dude's making some nice throws. A game against USC, A lot of those big games, he was playing well, and I understand why they moved on from him because he got one of my favorite recruits coming in, who I call one of his high school games, Ross, when they played up here in New Jersey. And I tweeted out, and I rarely do that about a high school player. I was like, whoever gets Malik Washington is going to get the best quarterback in the country. I think he was a sophomore at the time. He led that comeback against um, Don Bosco, looking like Vince Young out there. I was like, this dude is amazing. And lo and behold, he becomes one of the top prospects in the country. And he's right now a true freshman at Maryland. So yes, Billy Edwards, although he didn't play bad, they wanted to get Malik Washington out there on the field. So Edwards is someone that could make Wisconsin is one of those schools like we talked about with Iowa relevant, right? So keep an eye on that one. Also, we talked about the two running backs, Singleton and Keytron Allen. Ross, like both of these dudes go about their business in different ways. Singleton obviously has the explosive speed, kickoff returner. Kind of reminds me a lot of Sony Michel and what he was doing at Georgia. He can kind of serve in that multifaceted role. And Allen is more of the pace setter. Kind of reminds me a lot of remember James Davis at Clemson when he was paired with C.J. Spiller. You know, that type of dynamic Penn State has with those two backs. Both are starters in the NFL. Starter in the NFL now means part of a tandem. Excellent backs to come out of Penn State once again.
So Singleton I've known since like 8th grade. He's from Reading, Pennsylvania, where I'm from. He went to Governor Mifflin High School. He is a physical phenom. Like he is and has been since day one. Like, Emory, if you see him, he's like 225 and just looks incredible. Did a much better job last year, I thought, catching the ball out of the backfield. The next big thing for him is, I still think, vision, and I like to see him make people miss a little bit more.
Right.
You know, he should be, to me, like he is a one cut, bam. Like he's got to hit it, but he's got just that explosiveness in his body that, man, it's special. I mean, he had like that 85-yard touchdown run in the Rose Bowl as a true freshman. Big Ten freshman of the year. He's a very explosive player. I was a little surprised he came back to Penn State for his 4th year, but everything's changed now with NIL, and it was such a good year for running backs. It was probably smart for him to do that. Let's get to a guy that I don't know when the last time a safety's gone like top 10, top 5. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. But that might happen with Caleb Downs. I mean, you can tell me, Emory, but even when he was a true freshman at Alabama, they loved him. Then last year at Ohio State, he was awesome. Anybody you talk to raves and raves and raves about Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State.
He's the same air we were talking about Malik Hooker when he was at at Ohio State is where we're talking about Caleb Downs, except I feel like Downs is more impactful versus the run than Hooker was. We talked about Hooker because Hooker had tremendous ball skills. Downs has that too. But, man, it's fascinating to watch him get from deep third to the line of scrimmage and make a play at the line of scrimmage versus the run. And how he's closing on, passes in the flat, how he's closing on passes deep. Like, he does it all. He's a mistake eraser back there on the back end that helps you on both ends of defense. Give me guys like Downs 10 times out of 10. You dead on when you're talking about top 10 pick. This is what that looks like. Fluidity, range, ability to tackle, ability to cover. Downs is the guy.
It's interesting, too, because that's one of those debates where it's like, do you take a safety that high? Yes, you do. If they're that good of a player, you do take them that high.
Right.
Because think about how valuable it is to have a difference-making player at that position.
It's like quarterback. Anytime, Ross, if you're a strong down your battery, you're going to win a ton of games. Center, quarterback, running back, D tackle, Mike Backer, free safety. Period.
Let's talk about some big men, Emory. We got Isaiah World, the offensive tackle from Oregon, and Dennis Sutton, the D lineman from Penn State.
World transfers from Nevada where he was dominant with the Wolfpack. they've been on a nice little run since 2020, right? That COVID year where Carson Strong and all those guys, they started out with undefeated. And we was only watching those guys because there was a lot of CBS games during COVID. But yeah, World going to Oregon is just going to enhance their offensive line. Great body lean for World, dominant at the point of attack. I can't wait to see what he does up front at Oregon. And Danny Dennis Sutton, athletic, rangy. You saw him drop in coverage and get the interception against Notre Dame. You see him showcase some moves to get around the corner and get to the quarterback. First round pick because of those traits alone, and excited to see what he puts together this season to back up what he did last year.
So what I always think is interesting about a guy like Dennis Sutton is last year, all the focus was Abdul Carter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now that everybody's going to try and double Dennis Sutton, that's a different deal, Emory. I've seen some guys kind of rise to the occasion. I've seen other guys sort of wilt when they're not used to getting you see it in the NFL all the time. Like, I'll have double-digit sacks. Then next year, like, what happened to him? Well, what happened to him is he's now the guy they're game planning for, and that's a totally different deal when you're getting doubled more than half the time in a game. So we'll see if he's up for it. Let's get to the back end now with a couple of guys on your list. Only one guy from USC, that's Jaden Richardson, the receiver.
And the reason why I brought him up, Ross, he's not going to be a first-round pick. He's not one of the guys that people are talking about. This is someone that's going to make a roster and be a solid pro for a long time. He was a dynamic, dominant receiver at Tufts, NESCAC. You know what I'm saying? Division III Ivy.
Seriously?
Tufts, right? And
wait,
then,
this guy went from Tufts to USC?
Thank you, Ross. Therein lies the why this is a special player, right? Tufts. And so the Jumbos, great uniforms, by the way, brown and sky blue. It works. Trust me. I wore the suit combination. It works. He's 6'3", 210. Plays a lot like Juju Smith-Schuster, right? He can play outside, he can play inside, and can work. He breaks a lot of tackles. So he went from Tufts, redshirted last year after transferring to USC, and now he's in the mix. But this is someone that people need to start to get familiar with. He's going to be probably at one of these All-Star games that you'll see me at only. But he's going to be like, man, who's this receiver from USC that no one's? This is the dude. And you go watch his tape against at Tufts, bro. Obviously he looks like a P5 guy at Division III. And so that's one. And Tacario Davis was at Arizona. He's like Metroid, right? Big long corner, right? Out there, and it's like, man, this he's one of those guys, right? That you look physically like, oh, this is. And he had an up and down year at Arizona, but he still was someone that was on the radar from Jump Street. And so him going to Washington now, and we know how Washington. I know you can't really helmet scout, but Washington pumping out defensive backs. Okay, I'll sign up for that. That's one of those sight unseen places we love to talk about during draft time. But I love the 6'3", 6'4" nature of his game, and I think he's going to have a bounce back season, and people will begin to get reminded about how good Davis was at Arizona, prior to last season.
Curious, Emory, because we got a minute here, and I think we touched on all the guys you had here, unless I missed one. How do you start your process for this year? Like, how do you even know about? I mean, I know about a bunch of these guys like Big Ten or ACC because I see them in mock drafts. But there's guys here I've never heard of. Like, how do you start for the next year? Or is it just a lot of these guys you've already noticed from scouting their teammates for last year?
That's exactly it, Ross. And you kind of have to work a year ahead all the time. So if you're watching, if you're grading all these prospects like I do for the draft guide, you got a good gauge on. Oh, wow, this number 42 let me put him down. You look at the roster. Oh, he's a junior. Okay, talk about it next year. So I always earmark. I have a notepad of guys that I've earmarked from teams that I watched. So therefore, you already have a good foundation going into next season. And then you also have to look at who's the rising seniors. So those things, I start seniors first before I even talk about, like, that's why we didn't bring up a lot of guys that are juniors or redshirt sophomores. Let's just focus on the guys that we know are going to finish school first. And then we'll get to everybody else, because guys may end up going back to school. So that's how I start my process.
It is July, which means we got preseason starting later this month, which is nuts in the NFL. So check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast and get Emory's draft guide, footballgameplan.com/2025 draft guide as your preseason guide. And then next month, we'll have week 0, week 1, August college football. It is coming. Next week, we'll dive in to the top prospects in the Big 12. Check them out on social media at FBallGamePlan. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. We are at Ross Tucker Pod. Love those of you that rate and review the show. Please do that, as well as turn your notifications on when you subscribe. Other than that, the keg is kicked. We are all tapped out.
Thanks for tuning in to College Draft. Make sure to also check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Even Money, and Fantasy Feast, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.